Singled out from the boys and told not to wear tight-fit clothing at a series of assemblies last Friday. An online petition criticising the school has reached over 10,000 signatures. That's it for now. More in an hour.
News Talk Weather.
Thanks to the AA, you can find our best discounts on car insurance online. Go to the aa.ie.
Largely dry tonight with some scattered showers in Ulster. Lowest temperatures of -2 to +3 degrees. And now you're up to date on News Talk.
Off the ball. This is News Talk.
Now then, you're very welcome back. By the way, remember that you can WhatsApp us a video about your favourite piece of GAA memorabilia to 087 9180 180. We're picking the best entry every Friday. We do that right through the Football Championship. You could win yourself a €200 voucher for Super Value near you. And it's all with thanks to Super Value, proud sponsors of the GAA Football All-Ireland Senior Championship. Super Value, proud sponsors of the GAA Championship, and youtube.com/Super Value Ireland is where you can go for more details. Now we're talking rugby.
Wednesday night rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
OK, let's go over to La Rochelle. Ronan O'Gara, good evening.
Hey Joe, how are you?
Yeah, very well. I suspect, like a lot of people, you'll be going onto YouTube and watching some Diego Maradona over the next day or two.
Yes, big news, obviously. I don't know, I'll be going onto YouTube to watch it, but what a footballer, what a player. All my childhood memories of him playing well in so many competitions, and the guy was a genius with the ball, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, sporting genius in its truest form, you would have to say. Who's the closest?
I didn't realise he was 5'5" either.
Yeah, 5'5". I just can't. I thought surely 5'7", 5'5".
That's staggering, you know. But ball control, I suppose, you know, just. Who are we going to ask me? Who's the
I was going to say, is there an equivalent in rugby? Because
no, I don't think so. It's completely different.
It's so different, isn't it? Like Jonah Long,
yeah.
It's his physicality, it's everything. He made that kind of an impact. But in terms of outrageous skill and doing things that 99.9% of other people could do, there's more room for expression in football, I would humbly say to you, about your beloved sport than there is in rugby.
Correct. Most definitely, yeah. Yeah, he was phenomenal. He was, you know, I think watching the highlights, really, some of the goals he scored, he just made, which great players do. He makes the game look really easy and he had endless time on the ball.
So England 18, Ireland 7. I know you've watched this game this afternoon, I think, so you knew you had a general sense
just there, the last hour.
Right, good man.
I've only got 50 minutes into it, but...
OK.
Yeah, and it was... That's the great thing about, I suppose, doing your own little bit of analysis on it. God, I found an awful lot of commentary. I suppose there was a very negative vibe post-game. But I'll give you a few thoughts, potentially, what I saw. I thought, you know, the first kick from May off a cross kick, May beats Keenan in the air. It's an opportunist try, you know. I think, obviously, our spacing probably around the ruck, could we be a little bit wider, and the fact that may, because England are so good at attacking kicks, I would say going forward you'd probably have to put an extra defender on the kind of hoping, and the fact it's very difficult to win the ball clean. Mind you, Johnny May did win the ball clean against Keenan in the air, but I suppose if you're from that defensive viewpoint, if he can tap it back and he knows he has a guy in support. James Lowe did his best to cover the ground, obviously, but it was a great bit of skill. Well, it was a great kick from Farrell, firstly, put it in the one area where if you win the ball, you score. So that's a skill in itself.
Do you know what, though? A worry on that is that all came from England getting Ireland at the scrum, you know, a few moments prior.
Yeah,
and, like,
it did, exactly.
The set piece is nowhere near. Like, I heard even Bernard Jackman talking about how Andrew Porter, his pre-binding is not up to scratch. You're wondering why nobody's pointing that out to him. Like, we can't be this dependent on Tadhg Furlong, surely.
No, you wouldn't be. Well, he's a class player, so you are very reliant on, you know, some of the best players, and he definitely falls into that category. Why? Because he's produced over a sustained period of time, Joe. So that's why Tadhg Furlong is a big loss, and it's why, you know, Dan Levy is a loss. It's people like that are hard to take out of their team, but that's not an excuse. There is always someone else to come along and do a job and do it really well. And sorry, the prop. Sorry, I'm having a blank. Replacing Tadhg Furlong, Porter. Sorry,
Andrew Porter.
Porter has had a difficult day against Saracens in the European Cup, but aside from that, I thought he had been making huge progress and huge strides. But England and Twickenham are different to a lot of teams, and I was expecting it to be a bit of a mismatch and a roller coaster in the fact that it was just England steamrolling Ireland. But in my analysis, I didn't see that. I saw a try from a kick. Yeah, you can say, but the Ireland scrum on their feed was very solid, and they were able to launch attacks. You look at the time when Bundyaki rolled over Farrell. Sorry, he didn't roll over, but he made 4 yards on a positive carry of +4 meters, which means that all the England forwards have to retrieve, which changes the gain line and makes a big difference. It attracts Joseph. Then Gibson Park had a snipe right and got isolated and got a penalty against him. That obviously was some pre-planned move, but I think it's different when you run it in real life, and Bundyaki does that. I think you've got to shift the point, and that leads me probably into my next point. I think the big frustration, I think, from Ireland when they review this will be the fact that I think at times they ran into the strength of the English defence, which was probably 5 out from the ruck, if you understand me, the defenders there. But if you could actually get that a channel or two wider, you could see in the 28th minute, I think, when they got the ball to Earls and he made a half break and there was tempo on the ball and play time, suited Ireland when they were able to keep the tempo. It looked like England were struggling a bit in the first 5 minutes of the second half. Ireland had England under pressure. But Joe, I think people in the pub, people aren't in the pubs now, so that's not a good example of it, but people at home watching this have to understand, for whatever reason, and I wouldn't blame it all on Kelleher, there was the line-out malfunction, especially 3 line-outs 10 metres from an England line. The worst case scenario on a bad day there, even against a quality team, is you're coming away with 3 points on each time. Yeah,
the frustration there, the frustration there is that's hot on the heels of Ireland losing 3 lineouts in the French 22 just a couple of weeks back.
Yeah, well, I didn't take that into account yet, and that's a valid point. But you're also, I think people ask you what experience is. It's O'Gara missing 5 kicks in his first European Cup final and being able to reply in his second and third and fourth and doing it better. You've got to, I think the coaches and the players, they see it probably a lot in Kelleher, and yes, there is the margin for error. It's disappointing that it hasn't functioned, but I don't think you just discard a guy on something like that because he has so many other points. Yeah, you have to nail those moments, there's no doubt about it, but that's what experience is. You put yourself in that position and you do it better the next time. You look at Johnny May's second try, it's Ireland kick, Byrne kicks a good penalty to 10 metres, 8 minutes from the England line. It's an overthrow, Byrne slips, he doesn't kill the ball. What good teams do, they accelerate the pace of the game. They do 2-3 passes out to May. He chips and he regathers and he kicks again and he scores under the post. It's a hammer blow. And then it's 12-0.
Yeah. Feels like game over at 12-0 there. By the way, on Kelleher, no, I haven't heard, to be fair, anybody over here singling out Kelleher in particular. It's been talked about generally as a systems failure, the line-out.
Well, it has to be, because I think that's encouraging, because there are probably times, and I'm no expert in this area, same as the scrum, where it may come down to the throw. But from what I saw here, what it looked like, they looked like that they were very confident throws, potentially a little bit too much force or an overtry, and that's what adrenaline does to you. That's the difference between, training reps and games and reps and Twickenham, when your heart is beating incredibly fast. So yes. That is something that I think will be addressed and can be addressed, but also I think encouragingly from an attack point of view, I would say the big work on for Ross Byrne, and he's a great game manager and great control, is you can't plant when you pass the ball. So if he can actually run through on his passes, it will probably add an extra dimension to Ireland's attack. But also, I think where the space is, we didn't probably achieve what we wanted to, or get what we wanted to out of that. You know, I made a few notes about, I think, you know, when you feel pressure, you tuck the ball, and we carried into their strong D a lot. But there are examples of it when we got Bundyaki in the wide channels. You got Farrell in the wide channels. You got Earlsey in the wide channels. They were Peter O'Mahony had a nice little kick and he regathered it. That means you're on the front foot. But after that, because England's defence is so good and they come at you so hard around the 3, 4, 5, 6 defender. But if we can get beyond that, I think there could be interesting avenues to explore.
Yeah, I think the frustration people may have had with the game is that this is not the first time we've come up against this style of English defence, to say the least. This is 4 defeats and counting, and their defence has been pretty similar each time, you know. So we were planning for something that we were expected. But like, so I'll just finish. The frustration is like this wall of 13. Why are we continually running into them? Is the question. To put it bluntly.
Yeah, valid point. Yeah, absolutely. There has to be space somewhere. So sometimes. And probably where England have a marked advantage is the variety of kickers they have in the back line, and I suppose the different personnel available to England on the reception of these kicks, if you get me.
Yeah.
But also, I think I was made aware listening to the game that's 10 out of the last 13 victories have been for England, Joe. So this is a consistent dominant trend. Which I hope I may be corrected on that, but that sounds like whatever my maths is, that's up around 70% of them winning those games.
So what's your explanation or your read on Ireland not going to that space potentially out wide, or not dinking the ball over the English line a little bit more?
No, I think
explain why. Explain what's going wrong for Ireland in that they're running at England so much. Why is that happening?
In the preview, there was definitely, and you can see in the first, especially the first 8 minutes of the game, the amount of Lowe got a taste of the difference between club rugby and test rugby. He had 2 kicks charged down that weren't costly in the first few minutes.
Yeah.
And he had another kick from the line where he tried to clear, but Otojo hunted him down, and it was a worm burner, and it scraped along the ground for 15 metres, but nothing bad came of it, thankfully. But there was definitely a lot of thought went into, I think, the space between probably the first line and the second line, and Daly being really, really deep. But the bounce of the rugby ball on twice, it propelled towards Daly. There was times when Farrell was on it and Byrne was on it, and it could have rebounded into their patch just as easily. But that happens. I think what happens with your kicking game when you're previewing where the space is, it's the minute the ball slows down, it becomes advantage to defence. So so if you're playing off 9 or if you're playing off 10, you have to make sure that collision is at worst neutral. And when we ran at their kind of 4th and 5th and 6th defenders, we weren't winning those collisions, Joe, which means that Byrne is stationary and he's kicking, which means that the second last defender from England can release the last defender, and he can actually retreat maybe 4 or 5 metres, which gives him an advantage against the attacking player.
Yeah. So how are we going to get around this? Because England are coming to Dublin
for the last 30 minutes. It was,
yeah, but like
12-0 to 15-0 was a soft penalty.
Yeah, Quinn Rue, and then James Ryan off his feet, and suddenly it's 18-0 on 52 minutes, and it's game over. Just after half time.
I would say where I find it interesting, or where I find it with an awful lot of optimism, I think if the right lessons were taken out of this, I think there is absolutely huge scope to go after England in a different way. And maybe it's easy for me because I'm sitting on the couch and I go, don't get tested as a coach in it. But I think that the Ireland coaching staff will find plenty to get their teeth into, in the fact that I think if they can avoid the white wall, there is a little bit of joy on the outside, but you you gotta be brave to go there, because the further you try and play away from that, the more isolated you can become. But you could see on occasions when Ireland had tempo and ball and play for over 2 minutes at times, they looked dangerous, and Earlsey getting caught 2 metres from the line, and I couldn't understand what that decision was where Ireland got penalised. I think that he said Underhill was on his feet, but the ruck was formed. For me, it's a penalty the other way.
Okay, well, that is interesting, because that's definitely one of the more optimistic summaries of what you saw, because most people felt, you know, England made, 246 tackles to our 73. Ireland had 68% possession, 72% territory. The more kind of damning verdict would be, and it has been said by various people across the week, is that England were pretty comfortable. They knew, give Ireland the ball, we can contain them absolutely no problem. They cannot break us down, and, you know, we'll just coast home here. And what was Ireland's game plan? You know, various people have said, well, I'm not too sure what they were trying to do.
Yeah, I didn't see that watching it.
Right.
Maybe I'm blinded by my desire for this team, but I genuinely didn't see that. What I did see most definitely at times was that we were running into a brick wall, but I tried to provide potential solutions to how you can overcome that.
Yeah.
The line out, as I said to you, you know, I think 18-0 in the modern game isn't that big a lead. You know, I would say and I'm not a stato, but I would say it's probably in the really low percentage of points England have scored at home in Twickenham in a long time, 18 points. Because, you know, there are so many tries scored in the game, but it was a cagey game. And I think England did look comfortable. There's no doubt about that. And as you said, maybe they had another few gears in them when they decided, I think, to put scrum pressure on. They seemed to be able to get a penalty. It's not giving away the penalty for me that's you know, concerning. I think what players need to understand is what happens from that. You get a kicker like Farrell, and he usually puts the ball on, you know what I mean, on a bad day it's 15 metres out from the goal line. On a good day it's 7 metres out. From, you know, the accuracy of the kickers nowadays. So that equals to probably catch and drive. With the catch and drive laws nowadays, it's a little bit easier to defend balls than it has been a year or two ago, but it means you're under sustained pressure. But I felt that Ireland's kicking game can be improved a little bit in terms of accuracy, but also I think there was definitely positive shoots in terms of if you can kind of stretch that white wall, and for me it's you know what I mean, it's the best defence in world rugby with South Africa. So
can I jump in there for a second?
Yeah.
So, and it's Andy Farrell's misfortune, 7 games, 2 of them in Twickenham, 1 in Paris, not easy. Just if you give me that again, what you think Ireland can do to stress England next March in Dublin when they come? What were the little things? Because you talked about getting it wide. Is that what you're saying? Because
no,
I always hear as well you have to earn the right to go wide.
Yeah, but getting it wide is a general. It's vague and it's too general. You have to have a plan. But what you could see on numerous occasions when, so you know, Ireland moved the ball to width, but then they probably play it off 9. They play it off 9, which is a run-out runner. Play it off 9. But if there's a little bit of, so what goes through a defender's mind when they see an attacker is it a single thread or is it a double thread? If there's a single thread on the line, it means that all the England defenders can just shut the door on him. If there's a thread out the back, all you're looking to do is catch, you know what I mean? For all the athleticism of the English pack, they're big boys, and if you can get them off balance a little bit, there's a potential to run through a hole, the potential to get your nose through. And Doris did that really well at the weekend. He looked like he had so much time in the ball and his carries were effective. But after that, we played probably forward. Again, it can go maybe at times, and I struggle with it myself trying to implement it, but you can go forwards, backs, as opposed to going forwards, carry, forwards, carry, forwards, carry. You can go, you know, forwards, backs. Even, you know, Bundy Aki stepping up with a tip to Chris Farrell on a tip line, and you can go out the back to potentially, Ronan Kelleher. A little bit, I would say, where I think Ireland will see by changing the point of the attack and keeping the ball in play at tempo, they caused England problems.
Yes, okay, so a bit more variety in there as well.
Yeah, I think so.
We've been saying that since start of 2019 is the only thing.
Yeah, but it's easy for us to say it. It's how you can, how you implement the plan. But you look, I think where it can be done for looking at playing, and it's a general comment, but like you look at the World Cup and it was obviously different conditions, but you look how quickly Japan moved the ball, but it wasn't moving it one out. But I'm not saying we'll ever should play like Japan. I think Ireland knows its identity inside out, and they know what they're good at, and they know cup rugby, and they know pressure rugby, and they know what they're about, because that's the difference between destroying Wales and coming up short against England. But from what I was reading to what I saw, I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay, that's interesting. There's probably some psychological experiment whereby, if you'd watched it live, you might have been as disappointed as the rest of us.
Most definitely. Yeah, and it's very dangerous, I think, in that regard, because when you know an outcome, I think you're
braced.
Your internal senses are different.
Yeah, okay. Well, listen, that's interesting. That's a slightly different viewpoint to one we've had so far, so that was good. Ronan O'Gara, thanks a million. Cheers.
We're done.
I mean, we can stay and chat some more.
No, good man. Thank you, John. See you later.
Go on.
Bye.
Wednesday night rugby on Off the Ball.
With Vodafone, official sponsors of the Irish rugby team. Team of us. Everyone in.
Planning for the future. It's not always top of our priority list. That's why